coming on and joining us for this presentation today. We will actually be discussing the StrateCision tool, one of those that GoldenCare offers as a complementary tool, along with several other things. So we'll be walking through and doing a live demonstration showing where to find it, some of those little-known gems and hidden information that, insider tips and tricks to using it, making the most out of your efforts and running quotes and comparisons, and showing the printout and what it can do to help you write more business. So first and foremost, my name is Lynn Voss. I've been here at GoldenCare for about 10 years in the marketing support department. I am probably one of the most familiar with the StrateCision tool. I go in and run quite a few quotes, assisting the regional directors in some of their marketing efforts. So for those agents, all right, so what you'll want to do, the tool can actually be found on GoldenCareAgent.com. Again, it's our agent website. There's usually no login required to access the majority of the information. So the easiest way to find it is right in your browser's address bar, typing in GoldenCareAgent.com. Once the screen comes up, this tool can actually be found within the Tools tab, the very first option that appears in the drop-down box. So the page itself, when it loads, there are actually two ways that you can open the tool. Before I get too far into it, I just want to explain what StrateCision is. And before we get too far along, because we do have a number of attendees on the conference today, I will actually put the presentation, I will mute any of the background noise. I will open up at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. But just so that the presentation comes out a little better with less background noise, I will mute the conference now.
The conference is now in silent mode.
Okay, so now getting into it, StrateCision, that is actually the name of the company that created this tool and makes it available. The tool itself is actually referred to as LTCi. Here at GoldenCare, we often refer to it just as StrateCision. This is a quoting and comparison tool specifically for long-term care insurance. Now, StrateCision gets all of their product and pricing information directly from the carriers. It is a third-party type of program or system, and it is the carrier's responsibility to provide them with all of the pricing, product information, and provide them with updates whenever changes are made. So usually we do like to, this is a great tool, particularly for presentation purposes, but when it comes to the accurate pricing, most of the time we recommend that agents go and check it against the carrier-approved illustration software. It is fairly accurate, generally within cents, so if you don't have access to the full carrier illustration software, it's nothing to lose sleep over. You can always call GoldenCare and speak with someone in marketing. We can confirm those premiums. But usually StrateCision will give you a good idea about some of the costs and the plan options. All right, so on the StrateCision page within GoldenCareAgent.com, there are actually two ways that you can access the tool. The first is actually a button. The button will actually open the tool in an unbranded window. You can input your information and run the comparisons, but this is something that may be nice, especially if you are doing this in front of a client. So it is one option there. Otherwise, back on that page, if you scroll down a little bit, it is embedded right in the GoldenCare website. So running comparisons, you can do it right inside the GoldenCare agent site. All right, so one thing I will mention, there are system requirements. I will bring this up so you can take a look. One of the most common issues that I find, this this tool cannot work if you are using a device or some type of computer that has touchscreen enabled. What you will end up getting is a notice that says, this device is not authorized to be used on this website. It is not referring to your iPhone or iPad, but what it's saying is that the StrateCision tool cannot be run as long as the touch screen is enabled. So again, the desktop computers or a laptop are usually recommended for running the tool. On iPhones and iPads, unfortunately, the operating systems may just not meet all of the criteria needed to run the tool. So best case scenario is to actually run the program from a desktop computer or laptop. All right, a couple other things that I do want to mention. This StrateCision tool is provided through the GoldenCare agent website at no cost. I have heard agents who have purchased accounts directly with StrateCision for use of this tool. You can do that, but there's a cost involved. So this is one of those value-added services that we provide our agents so that they can have access to this quoting and comparison platform without additional cost. Because of that, unfortunately, there's no way to save quotes that you run. And another step further, there is a timeout feature. It's not as much a feature, but if you do get pulled away doing other things, or you leave the screen to go help with something else, it can time out. And unfortunately, that would require that you refresh the GoldenCare agent StrateCision page in order for it to start over from the beginning. Another thing, just tips and tricks that we've found in using StrateCision over the years, we actually recommend using some of the most complex long-term care insurance products first. When building a comparison, if you quote the most complex product first, all of the similar options or all of those options will be reflected on the printout page. If you use more of a basic policy first, unfortunately some of the more complex features or the unique riders may not appear on the printout page. So just a couple things to get us started. Let's see here. Another thing, a couple more housekeeping things. StrateCision is a really great tool. It is great just to get a feel for cost, but it is not quite as sophisticated as the carrier-approved illustration programs, particularly when you're looking at some of these complex long-term care products available. The one I'll pick on is Mutual of Omaha. It actually has 69 different inflation options. There are numerous monthly benefit options. There are even more policy limit options. The StrateCision tool, while able to do a lot, it just simply can't keep up with the amount of flexibility offered on the Mutual of Omaha plan. When Mutual of Omaha launched their LTC 13 products, the custom solution as well as the secure solution, when they had provided the product information to StrateCision, they had actually received a letter from StrateCision apologizing. StrateCision explains that they simply could not show as all of the options. Their program was great, but the custom solution plan in particular was in a class of its own. So it's quite a compliment, but sometimes it can prove challenging to run apples-to-apples comparisons. What I'll do here is build a basic plan that I feel will compare as accurately as possible against some of the different carriers I will choose to compare. So on the very first screen, even when you come to the StrateCision page, it will open on the client page. The minimum information that's required is the agent name, It does also provide fields that you can provide additional contact information, email address, phone number, mailing address, but this is the minimum that you would need in order to progress through to run a quote. As you hit the next button, it will show the client information. The minimum client information that you would need is the name, the date of birth or age, and the state. So I'll get that typed in. We'll just use a 60-year-old. Okay, if you are working with more than one client, for example, if you're working with a couple, in order to show the second applicant, all you would have to do is click that little square. So then you're able to enter applicant 2's information as well. To keep things simplistic, though, we are only going to run just a single applicant. Okay, so once you get that information in, you can hit Next. This is the screen that shows all of the carriers that utilize StrateCision for the quoting and comparison abilities. So this includes carriers and products that are outside of the GoldenCare's portfolio, so you can actually get information from other carriers, for example, Northwestern Mutual, ones that aren't available on a brokerage contract. So it's very nice there. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, it is recommended to quote the most complex product first. So I'll just choose Custom Solution. Here is the screen that you will be entering the basic product or the basic plan design. So for now, we're just going to put in some basic information. Let's see if I can do it relatively quickly. I'm going to try and build a plan, like I said, that's going to compare fairly accurately to some of the other policies that are out there. So this is one of those examples. Unfortunately, it does not give as many monthly benefit options. The StrateCision program only offers in increments of $500. And the same goes with the policy limit, which they call here the pool of money. It's not $5,000 increments, but in $25,000 increments. So in choosing one, I'm just going to be building something that will compare relatively well across the different companies I will choose. So going through, they do include several of the inflation options, luckily. They are really good about that. They also allow you to quote Mutual of Omaha's inflation term options, which is great and can really be a cost-saving advantage. I think this is about where I want it to be. So basic plan design, even on the screen that you can enter those benefit options, you're able to calculate premium. Now down here is an illustrations button. This will actually bring up a multi-page illustration. But again, this is just it's a third-party program. It is not the carrier-approved illustration software. It can definitely help in a pinch, but we recommend checking it against the illustration software and the approved carrier illustration software, especially when it comes to submitting business. Really, we like seeing those. The StrateCision print-offs are not quite as comprehensive in terms of explanations. So what we can do is select a couple pages, and just to give you an idea of what this actually generates, it is a very basic outline of what you've quoted, and it does provide a little bit more information. But again, the carrier-approved software is the recommended illustration. Now, going back to our benefits, the screen that we can elect the benefits and specify the plan design, when you go to the Compare button, it will take you to a layout screen. So this is actually what will appear on your print-off later on. And at this point, we've only done one carrier. So in order to add another carrier to compare against, you would go to the Add Quote, and you're back to the screen where you can elect another insurance plan or another long-term care plan to compare against. So in this case, I'm going to pick on Genworth. When you build a plan with the first carrier, StrateCision does its best to actually carry over comparable benefits into any of the additional plans that you're going to be using. Unfortunately, it is not a perfect science. There are a lot of nuances to a lot of the different plans, so it may not always compare accurately. It does take a little bit of fine-tuning. You'll see here the 5400 as opposed to the 5500 that I had used with Mutual of Omaha. So I'm just going to go in and try to fine-tune it a little bit and make sure that they compare as accurately as possible. It's really my goal is to make sure that as few differences, it just means fewer explanations for the consumer. It makes it easier for them to understand the concept more than grasping individual parts of different policies. So I'll go through. I think everything works out fairly well. Again, the illustrations button, but I'm going to go and click the compare, and you'll see that the other carrier was put side by side against the first carrier quoted. I'm actually going to go back in and add one more company. I'll do Transamerica in this case. Okay, so just again making sure that everything lines up relatively well. A couple things here. In this case, I think StrateCision did a pretty good job. Okay. Okay, so the easiest way to go back and just to check over your work is actually to go back out to the comparison screen. So this is going to be the layout screen. Here I've lined up I've lined up the health ratings. In this case, unfortunately, I did not line up the daily benefit. So I'm going to go back in. You can go back to modify your plan designs. Okay. And just making sure that everything lines up well. Okay. I think there's one more modification I'll do to the Mutual of Omaha plan. Glancing through the layout screen, I am seeing the built-in return of premium features on these other two, which is made as an option on the Mutual of Omaha plan. So just to go back in, I'll add that. So that way they compare relatively well. You may have noticed I skipped a step. I did not calculate the premiums. You don't have to. So here's what we have. And I think this is a pretty good comparison, just glancing over some of the information. You may notice the gray bar. The entire printout may not fit within this single screen. So just be aware if you're not seeing everything you expect to see, just to be sure to use those scroll bars. Okay, so when you go to print, there are several different options. You can use the print option that will send it directly to your local printer. Often, because my responsibilities generally include emailing these, I do print a PDF, and of course then you can save it, attach it to an email, and send as needed. So this is really putting everything together. Now, if I go back just to go over what appears in this print-off. Now, this is a little bit different than the layout screen. It does provide a little bit more information. If you see here, it's not a perfect system because both Mutual of Omaha and Transamerica use monthly benefits, this is just a nuance of the system. Transamerica does have daily benefits with the optional monthly benefit, as does Genworth, but it's just some of the nuances of the system don't allow things to show accurately on the print-off. You know, as you go through, it has the descriptions over here, and it does provide quite a bit more information about some of the unique features in the other column. So this includes the cash benefit, you know, rate guarantees. It does provide a little bit more information in the other row. Of course, it has the premiums, the plan titles. This makes for a very good presentation page when you're looking or when you're working with your clients. It shows that you've done your homework. You really are trying to provide them with the best plan at the best cost. So this is a really nice thing just to have in your back pocket. Now, if we go back, the StrateCision tool does actually have quite a bit more. Now, they do have a search button here in the top of the StrateCision tool. This is actually a different way to utilize the comparison tool. Instead of building the plan design with each individual carrier, this will allow you to specify the plan design, and it will populate which ones are the best based on the benefit options you've chosen. So keeping things fairly similar, I'll go down and do a new search. If I recall correctly, just based on what I've entered earlier, this is only going to show Mutual of Omaha. So in order to erase things and start fresh, I'm just going to go refresh my screen. And this will give you a better view of what the search button can do. Again, just the basic information needed to progress through your screen. Okay. And then once you go and click on that search button, you'll be able to specify a whole new plan design. So if I do something, we won't do we'll just do a regular, well, maybe we'll do the best. Just something really basic, a little bit different than what we had drawn up before. So that way you can show, or you can see some of the results. Just making sure that matches. Inflation protection. Okay, so if we go through and now hit the new search, this will, based on the plan design entered, it will populate a list from least expensive to most expensive based on carriers that match that plan design. So what you can do is go through and compare the premium versus the monthly benefit information, the inflation protection. What I will mention again is StrateCision really does try its best to put comparable features together, especially in something like this, in this search results. But unfortunately, it's not a perfect science. There are still nuances of some of these different plans that may not make it the most accurate. This is actually something that I tend not to use often just because I am comfortable and familiar with the plans, and I prefer building them with each of the carriers that I am specifically looking for. So, but it is available. It's definitely handy if you're really just looking for a quick answer on cost. So what I'll do now, there is another side. There's another side to this called WebAdvisor. Now this is actually something that can bring you up to speed or allow you to be in the know in the industry fairly quickly. So again, if I'm just going to refresh my screen, that way it will completely start over. I'll enter that basic information. And again, before I get past that screen, let me show you where the WebAdvisor tool is. Now what we've been doing before was using the web quote. Again, that's to generate premiums and just an outline of the plan design that you had built. The WebAdvisor tool, be sure to check that button before moving on to the next screen. Now again, just the basic information here. we'll just do something like that. So this time, when you hit Next, you may notice that some of these tabs are different. This will actually allow you to compare some of the benefit features, parent company information, financial strength ratings. There's a lot more information that the carriers provide to StrateCision, and this is how you access some of that information. This time, instead of selecting one carrier at a time, they do allow you to select multiples. So instead of going through one by one, I may just quickly go through and select multiples. By doing this, I'm simply clicking the control button and clicking. So that way I'm allowed to elect more than one. On the very next screen is where you're going to be selecting some of the benefit options, the overview of the plan or the company. As you can see here, in-force LTC premiums in millions, tax-qualified partnership plans, issue ages. There's a lot of really good information in here. So you can certainly go through and specify specific information you're looking for. And again, clicking multiples is just control-click. And as I add benefits, the options I have chosen will move over into this column here. On the right, that column will actually be the information that translates into the print-off. So I'll go through and pick maybe a couple more things. And instead of hitting Add Benefits, I'll just go through and hit Next. And this is a layout screen very similar to what it did for the quoting software. However, it's going to show quite a bit more information. Okay, I do apologize about that. It appears as though the screen may have been frozen. Hopefully everyone now is able to see the layout screen that I'm referring to with the information that I'm discussing here. Again, this layout screen, the same types of print options will appear at the bottom. Options to delete if you've elected too many carriers or if you're not interested in one specifically. And then here at the bottom, they allow you to print. Now, this is a pop-up box that will allow you to show short questions versus long questions. I generally go with short questions, and then, again, being in the position I am, I usually choose the PDF option. So when you're looking at the type of printout you'll receive, it'll still be in a grid fashion, and you can go through and look at the specific information. And, if you're interested in premium classes or whether companies have gender-specific rates, this is a really handy way of getting familiar with the competition. It's a great way of finding quick answers to some of those things that escape you at the moment. So it's really handy. I do actually use this and save versions for personal reference later on. So it's really handy to have access to. All right. So I think that's the majority of the presentation. And again, I apologize for the issues. Just as a quick recap, we can go back and just build something very quickly so you can see. Again, the minimum information is the agent name, and I'm going to switch it back to web quote. So I'm just going to do a 60-year-old male, and the custom solution plan, again, using the most complex carrier first. Building a pretty basic program. Again, the different increments available on StrateCision is not quite as extensive as what the carrier-approved software is. Just to show you kind of what the quoting comparison tool provides. All right, so once you get to the layout screen on the quote comparison, you can go back to the Add Quote button. and you can go through and select other companies. So, like I said, it does try its best to put comparable benefits together, but again, it's not always a perfect system. So I'll just go through and quickly rebuild this. Not to worry, too, if you're missing anything or if you want to re-review, I believe we are going to try and record and provide a small instructional video on this later on. So just keep that in mind. So just to give you an idea of that comparison screen that would actually show the two carriers side by side. So again, this is great to have some of the nuances of the print-off. Unfortunately, it's not a perfect science, but again, it's a really nice presentation piece. So I am going to open it up for questions, questions and answers if anybody has questions. Hello, hello?
The conference is now in talk mode.
All right. Does anybody have questions about what we've discussed in this presentation today? Okay, I do apologize. I do believe the screen was frozen for a lengthy time during today's presentation, and I do apologize. We will do our best to put together a quick demonstration video and make that available to you at a later time. Be sure to watch for the follow-up emails. As a result of attending, they will include some additional information, links to the GoldenCare agent website, as well as, like I said, if we are able to get a video ready to share, we will certainly include a link to that video as well. Okay, I do want to thank everyone for coming out, for joining us during today's webinar. Again, I apologize for any of the issues. If you do have questions or would like help walking through using StrateCision, I would be more than happy. Again, my name is Lynn Voss at GoldenCare, and again, thank you for coming on to today's webinar.